doing its thing. Thinking about it. Okay, we're live. Okay, hello.
Oh,
Welcome to Cannabis Marketing Live. I am your host, Jake Litke. We have Matt Taverna here, our returning guest on data. Today, we're going to be talking about first-party data, how you can leverage it across a variety of marketing tactics, everything from new customer acquisition to customer retention, to also driving, successful marketing campaigns. Um, I'm the CEO at MediaGel. We are a digital marketing company. We'll do quick intros here just in case anyone hasn't been here before. Um, Matt, and we are focused in the cannabis space and have been since 2018. Matt, maybe you could give just a brief
yeah,
bio
yeah.
here.
I am the a co-founder and principal of Statera Solutions. We are a data analytics and media firm that we focus on precision and accuracy of targeting certain data points, whether it be customer data or other data sets. Um, Part of our focus is on retail and CPG, particularly in regulated industries. So we work closely with MediaGel in the execution of marketing and particularly around precision data lists.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dig right into it. I actually had a conversation this morning that we can kind of lead this off with. I'm
Yeah.
talking to an MSO that we work with, and they're in, I think, 5 states. And we were talking to them about their customer behavior. And so right off the bat, there's some pretty big differences in the states, right? So one of the things that we're always curious about is how many orders are happening online for a dispensary. And we've seen numbers as low as 5% and as high as 80%. Some of this has to do with the laws in the different states. So, for example, in some states, you can't, the products are all behind glass, right? So you can't look at them anyway. And in that instance, we see a much higher degree of online ordering because now the shopping experience isn't that dissimilar from just ordering online. So they know that. They know that in this state, we've got more online orders than in that state, and there's different behavior patterns. But what they don't know is really much about their customers, right? They know their names and their addresses and their email addresses and phone numbers for a lot of their customers. But beyond that, they don't have any insights that the traditional CPG world is accustomed to using to figure out who their customers are and how they should be speaking to them. And so let's talk a little bit about what you can do with first party data. So you're a dispensary, you've got a bunch of customers, you have contact information about them. What can a
Yeah,
dispensary do?
and so I think when we're we're talking about dispensaries and in the cannabis industry in particular, um, just kind of level set on what we are actually talking about. So there's like a few places where first party data originates. One is your point of sale with online orders, that as Jake mentioned, um, and that's kind of a gold mine because you get not only your customer data, that's name, address, email, phone numbers, but you get the customer data linked to a purchase. So whether it be SKU level data that you're looking for, like certain products or actually product types, you're kind of getting that real gold of and wealth of information on your customers as it streams in. And cannabis, before Jake and I were doing prep on this call, and I think the a silver lining in the kind of walled garden industry that cannabis is that there's cannabis specific, point of sale software, and so making sure that you kind of keep that record of your customers and kind of are using that data wisely is kind of the most important part of curating like a first party data list. And there's other ways to get first party data through loyalty programs, signups through your website and things like that.
Yeah.
So kind of going going to use that data, and I don't want to be kind of too simplistic, kind of starting out of the gate, but when we talk to dispensaries, when we talk to folks in the industry, there's a kind of a, I think when you talk about cannabis data, a lot of the discussion is about inventory on shelves and kind of sales, either week over week or month over month, year over year. Certainly location data, like the inventory at different locations for MSOs. But I think what's been missing is like the ability to know why that inventory is moving in certain ways. And look, customer data is not a silver bullet into that answer, but it can definitely shed light onto and kind of correlate with certain ways your inventory is moving. So to Jake's point, that there's a customer that doesn't understand why they have dispensaries in several states that doesn't understand why their customers are acting in different ways. So the first place you could look at would be the kind of traditional, like look at pricing, inventory, products available. But then secondly, looking at customer profiles themselves. So back to the point of sale data, your loyalty program data, people that are engaging with you, giving you their, when we say first party data, that's data where your customers check the box at the bottom of the page and said, I think it's okay that this dispensary reaches out to me again or keeps in touch with me. That's all first party data. And so getting a customer profile for a certain location, if you have a round number, 5,000 customers in one state, you can begin to aggregate what does that 5,000 person list look like? Is everybody ordering online? Is everybody buying a similar product? Is everybody coming in certain times of the week, certain times of the day, certain times of the month, certainly? And then, you kind of begin to look at different patterns, and there's actually deeper ways to look at customers as well. I mean, Jake, something that MediaGel has, I think, been on the forefront of doing is kind of then enriching that customer data, first party data list with kind of which will be called third party data, which is the data you kind of append to your customer data.
Yeah, so let's the things you were covering are, doing analysis on what you know about your current customers, right? You have a certain cohort that comes in frequently, comes in infrequently. You have high AOV, people that are purchased infrequently but large amounts, or people that come in a couple times a week and order small amounts. So that's information that's at hand for most dispensaries, and they can look at their POS system and kind of segment their customers and get some understanding of that. But the missing piece, or kind of the Rosetta Stone here, is understanding why those groups of customers are different from each other. And so, what we do is we'll take that first party list of here's my customers, here's their email addresses, and we can bring those into an identity graph. We work with Matt's company, Statera, to do this, and we can match those users with the broader universe of data that exists that has been around for a long time, ever since the era of direct mail. There's lots of data points about each household in the U.S. and it comes from different places. Some of it comes from credit reporting bureaus, some of it comes from surveys, some of it comes from state records. But if you can say, okay, I've now broken my customer base into these four main categories. Now, what we can do is we can take each one of those categories and we can build a demographic profile on those customers and say this group of people is largely or comprised over there, or they over-index for this age group, this ethnicity, whether or not
Gender.
they're dogs, whether or
Yeah.
not they have kids, whether or not they've got parents in the household. There's 1,500 dimensions that we can measure against. And that starts to give the owner of that business some insight into why their different groups of customers are behaving differently and how you should address them, right? And we have found my favorite anecdote recently is our head of media figured out we were running a campaign for it actually was an online campaign for a glassware company, right? They sell bongs. And it took us a little while to figure out the right audience because when we started talking to the advertiser, they're like, we want to go after gamers and college students. And so that's what we started doing. And that was working okay, right? The campaign was doing okay, but it wasn't really
I
driving.
mean, but which is also just like a very it's a very like high level,
Yeah.
what you would think of as a cannabis marketing program, which is a great place to start.
It's a good place to start. But once you start running data and you start seeing how the campaign's performing, who's buying, who's not, we discovered that that particular company's target audience is suburban moms who bake sourdough bread, right? And it took us a little while to figure that out, but once we did, the performance on that campaign tripled, right? It like literally 300% increase in sales once we figured out who their audience was. And so that's the kind of power because when you're running advertising, you have the whole universe of people to serve ads to. And just for simplicity's sake, let's just say all the impressions cost the same amount, and you're going to get a 0.1% click-through rate. So you're getting one out of every thousand ads, you're getting the engagement you want. And then you drive that to conversion. If you can change that from like 0.1 to 0.2 or zero point 0.3, that's where you get that growth rate, right, in terms of your performance.
And yeah, and so just on the kind of brass tacks on how you actually knew that piece of
Yeah.
information, sourdough bread is you taking the people who have bought bongs in the past month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever you want to look back at. Hopefully you've done things to curate that data, like actually require people to put in a zip code and put in their first and last name and put in or at least one kind of identifier like an email address or phone number. And then using like an identity graph like Statera has to then match that to a bigger consumer data set. I can actually think about what indicates sourdough bread is that largely that's tied to things like magazine subscriptions. So like I remember you like when you were a kid, there was be like Publishers Clearinghouse, and they
Yeah,
give you
I'm
they
pretty
come
sure I
around and
sold
give you
those door to door in like
they
junior
give you
high.
yeah. So like there's a reason why like they wanted you to be engaging with that program and putting your magazine subscription with the program because they're finding out all this information about you, about your house. And so that's now mostly done online. And it's, relatively privacy friendly because it's opt-in and it's pretty generalized. But knowing that about a group of people, and looking at like a customer record, then I keep going like this because it's like if you think about a spreadsheet, it's like Matt Taverna wears this sweater or something like, but and also my email address and my cell phone number. Um, it's kind of interesting to see that, right? But then
Yeah.
you're looking at all the rows. So Matt, Jake, Bob,
A couple
Julie,
hundred other
Henry,
A million Americans.
and you're looking at then how do these people, what do these people have in common, right? Sourdough bread. But then it's even more interesting to say like what do these people not have in common? So like to the point of your original story about the MSO is like maybe looking at the differences among cohorts is just as beneficial when you're doing ad targeting and trying to uh, segment lists, and then trying to kind of go after new customer acquisition,
Right.
which using your existing customers to do new customer acquisition is even more exciting.
Yeah, so the first thing you'll look at are what are the positive inferences of, okay, this group of people that I've identified in my customer base, they they over-index for this specific type of behavior. But what you're talking about is also the counterfactual, which is what do these people collectively not do, right? And you want to use both of those things when you're designing your marketing campaigns, because that's going to tell you where to send your messaging, not just not just geographically, but like which publications do you want to be running your ads on, right? And you could take something simple like news sites. You could take liberal news versus conservative news. That cohort of people that are reading those publications behave differently. They're interested in different things, and the messaging that you would give them can be different as well, depending on what the product is. So you need to use both sets of information of like what are they, how are they similar, and how are they dissimilar from the other people? And another common way to think about this, especially in cannabis, is like, okay, you've got premium flower purchasers and you've got vape cart purchasers and you've got edible purchasers, and those are frequently different people. There's definitely some overlap, but when we have run campaigns for something that's health and wellness based, you're going to run that in different publications than if you are trying to market a really high potency vape cart because they're different audiences and they're reading different things online or playing different games or whatever the the avenue is that you're going after or channels. If you're doing CTV, like what channels are they watching? You've got different people watching Discovery Channel versus MTV, for example, right?
And yeah, I mean, and I think it's even uh, like a wider point on it is not just the channel, but the medium and what you're gonna offer. Because I mean, we work with a couple of direct mail firms. One of Canada Direct is one that does this really well. That if if you're looking for a certain type of customer, trying to target a certain type of customer, maybe you want to send them a piece of direct mail, and that's something that you can glean from uh, you
Right.
know
What are you going to
the
put
first
on
party data.
what picture are you going to put on the direct mail, right?
Right.
And then
And then if are you
look
going to
at
offer like you don't need to offer a blanket discount to every single one of your customers or every single person you send a piece of mail. In fact, if it's like a bond like this bond company, and these are women that bake sourdough bread, they I'm inferring that they probably don't need to discount the next time they buy something, and maybe you want to actually up the ante on your marketing, and you actually send them kind of like a high end piece of mail, and then you get into the ROI discussion. But then it's more informed by uh, what rather than just like, oh, this was the best piece of mail I've ever done, or this is the best digital campaign, and we curated the best publishers. That's all great, but it starts with I feel really good about what I'm saying to these people, no matter if I fuck up the targeting or on the actual execution side. If you feel good about what you're saying out of the gate, you're starting from the 30-yard line rather than
yeah. And
yeah.
when you think about like let's say you're marketing a premium product versus a value product, right? So
Right.
out of the gate, you'd be like, okay, well, let's look at the zip codes in my area and look at household income. And that's something that is relatively straightforward to do. But with digital advertising, you can be more nuanced than that, right? Which is that I want to take this customer list and I want to give them a specific campaign based on what we know about their purchase history and income levels. So people in this income level tend to purchase these types of products. With digital advertising, you can target it at the household level because even at a zip code level, there's still going to be variances in the zip code in terms of we'll just stick with household income for now in terms of what price points people like to purchase things at. So with by looking at it at the household level, you can start to say, okay, well, I'm going to target this particular zip code, but half of the people, because I know what I know about them, I'm going to serve one set of ads. And then for the other half, based on the fact that I know what their income levels, I'm going to give them a different type of offer. Um, and all of these like tactics really, again, they boil down to how efficient you can be in your media buying, right? Because the success rate per impression is low, right? So you're dealing with a small number at the very top of the funnel in the beginning. And so if you can change the top of the funnel by, even one fractions of a percentage, that when that flows down to your purchase, that can have the impact of doubling or tripling the sales that you get from that marketing effort.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when you're dealing with people that are like known purchasers of your product. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and that kind of dovetails into let's talk about just customer acquisition cost, right?
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, like we said, known customers, these people who have bought something from you, that have not only bought something from you, but they trust your company enough, and they wanted your product enough to actually give some personal information about themselves, and they opted into communication with you. Um, that's a much easier sale than the alternative. And I don't want to talk too black and white, but Jake, what does it look like? Talk about the alternative of kind of like flying blind.
the alternative, well, I mean, flying blind is obviously not good.
Right.
But yeah, so like So you've got your main metrics here are going to be your customer acquisition cost. How much did you have
Right.
to spend across whatever channels you're marketing to get a new customer? Um, and then what is the LTV, the lifetime value of that customer, which, can be described in different time frames. And then the next part is retention. I think that a lot of people that we talk to when they first start getting into doing real advertising, they're heavily focused, almost like myopically focused on new customer acquisition, right? And the conversation usually goes like this, okay, I want to run ads, but I don't want to run ads to any of my existing customers. Um, which is not correct, right? I mean, any traditional brand that you're aware of, you still see ads for them, right? So you start with the topic of saying, okay, well, your your marketing efforts that are going to be dedicated towards retention, that number should be greater than zero. That's the first hurdle to get over with someone, right? Which is some of your dollars need to go towards your existing customers, for a couple of reasons. One is you have other competitors that are marketing to your current customers. And the other is from a psychological perspective, is if you are a customer of a brand and you see ads for that brand, it actually reinforces your relationship with them. You can think about it when you're like driving down the road and you see a billboard, for example, and it's for something that you are a customer of. You're like, oh, that's my brand. That's where I shop. That's what I
Yeah.
do. That has a real value to it, which I think frequently is overlooked. Now, if we tie this back into your first party data and what you can understand about them and say, okay, well, let's look at our high frequency customers. Let's see what we know about them and how they behave and what their demographics are. And then let's use that to try to find customers that are similar so that we can have a
That
better
look
chance of
like,
retaining them.
yeah. Yeah. So back to the sourdough bread
Yeah.
example. Let's go find more women that bake sourdough bread.
Yeah, we're
And
on
then,
that now.
the high correlation.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, the one, just as an aside, and this is another discussion for another day. Um, the Jake and I both have a guru. His name is Dennis O'Malley, who's like rabid about this point. There's a not one challenge. A big challenge in cannabis branding is the dispensary brand, which is, kind of what you would think of as that's the place you're going to go buy.
Sure. That's like Best Buy.
And then there's the brands that they're selling. There's the actual like product brands, and then like the juxtaposition of, what is a customer actually going after, um, can be informed by the patterns you can see in your first party data. So if you have your own dispensary brand, and then you can look at the SKU level data in your point of sale, you can begin to actually make those patterns like look easier to figure out than if you're just kind of, going off of, kind of more like gut instincts, like college kids and gamers.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that in my experience, probably, if not 100%, close to 100% of the time, once we start running media, the advertiser learns things that they
Yeah.
didn't expect about their customers. Here's another anecdote. This was in the Silicon Valley dispensary, and we're running campaigns, and the business owner was convinced because he had an affluent area and he had affluent customers that, his customers didn't play games on their phones, right? Now we know from like
It's like all people
hundreds
do.
of
Yeah.
campaigns that games on phones drive sales for cannabis companies. It works really well. And it works, and if you think about it, it's because generally when people are playing a game on their phone, they're either killing time, like they're on a train or something, or they are trying to be in a mind state of avoiding stress or relaxing or some sort of other, escape mechanism. That particular mindset for that person is a good time to advertise cannabis products specifically, and it works well, right? And so, I always caution people to not try to assume that their customers are like them, And because that's a natural thing. I've built this store. This is my design aesthetic, and I've figured out who my customer base is, and I expect them to behave the same way that I do. And this is where the more data that you can have, the better off you will be because you will be surprised by the data, and it will help you drive towards better outcomes when you're running your marketing.
And I think there's also just I mean, the knowing the difference between a gamer, which I wouldn't put in the category that you're talking about, like that's some, and people who just, play Sudoku or something on their phone, um, Wordle.
Yeah,
What are the new ones?
I don't know. There's a
The,
lot.
the New York
But
Times,
it's
by the way, is like now their biggest driver of revenue is their games. So
all
like
right.
the most established publication in the United States now derives most of
That's
their
game
revenue
company.
from games. Yeah, because
Yeah, sure.
I mean it's Wordle largely, but they have many others. Um,
All right.
yeah,
So let's see. We got a couple other topics we wanted to cover. Let's talk about we talked about this a little bit, but let's talk about personalization of the ads itself. So if you take your customer data and you get back a demographic report on your segments and you understand that for whatever reason, a lot of your customers have dogs, right? They over-index for that a lot. It could be dogs, it could be sports cars, whatever it is. We have the ability to append all that information, but you can then use this to inform your creative strategy, right? If you've got an identified that like all of your people that shop once a week and spend $100 every time they come in, if most of them have dogs, maybe you should put some dogs in your creative, right? I'm using very simple examples here,
yeah, yeah.
but if you don't know that, you're never going to have that opportunity. And the cost is low to nothing if you're running a marketing campaign, for example, like with us, that's included in the services, the ability to do that. And it's shocking to me how many people have like more rich first party customer data than most other industries have,
All right,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you go to a dispensary, generally you're going to have to give your name. You're going to have to show your license. Your license data isn't used, but like your name and your email address, your phone number, to sign up to the loyalty program. And most dispensaries are focused on that set of data they have without realizing that you can append so much other information to it.
And I mean, and there are states where license data can be used in certain ways just to keep track of customers. There's information on your license you, that is proprietary to you, and you can't use that. Dispensers can't use at all. But I mean, yeah, like you're collecting so much data. I mean, I think it's tragic for me when you go into a dispensary and it's like they have either a sign up or something, and it's like, do you want to sign up? And you're like, and I sometimes just I'm like, nah, and they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, oh, that was like it's like a missed opportunity. So I mean, I think it's like it's even to the point of how I started the call of like, how do you collect this data? There's so many chances to do it. Like training your bartenders is also like an important part of this, and like actually giving when you give a discount, um, have your customer have some stake in that what the discount is. So an email address, a phone number.
Yeah, my point was more that like if I
Okay.
go to the local game store, the liquor store, or whatever it is, they don't really know very much about me. They don't
Right.
know who I am. They don't have my name. They don't have my email address unless I've opted in for, their newsletter or whatever. Most dispensaries have that level of information
Yeah.
about most of their customers. So they're actually in a better position than most businesses to be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah. And
leverage the
I mean,
data.
I went on a tangent about how you can even do it better. But yeah.
Yeah, notice you do want to
Always
encourage.
the always the wet blanket. Sorry.
Yeah. Just real quick, for those of you that are here in Zoom, there is a Q&A section. So if you have some questions, you can type them in. We're happy to answer them. If you're on a different platform, because I know we're streaming in multiple places, you can just reach out to myself on LinkedIn, or you can email me, or fill out a form on our website. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
I think one thing that would be interesting to talk about, I mean, and this gets a little bit salesy, so I apologize, is how do you actually do all this stuff? How can you get
Yeah.
it done? Um, Obviously, there's companies like Jake's and mine that kind of do this soup to nuts, where we have a history of securely handling customer data on behalf of our clients. And so we can set you up with spots to send in your records and have them appended with the kind of data we're talking about, both to kind of complete the record. So if you have email address or phone number, we can actually give you like first name, last name, address, city, state, zip. And then we can also kind of like do some of the demographic appends as well. Say, things like gender, age, household income, kind of like, the roll ups on different consumer interests.
Actually, Matt, I know I
Yeah.
kind of just rattle off the easy ones like age, gender, income, presence of children, but maybe you could rattle off a slightly longer list of some of the things that are interesting in the data set that can be appended.
Yeah, I mean, we have a full data dictionary. If you go to statara.com/data, you can take a look. But yeah, I mean, so just so not to kind of like be the boogeyman, big bad wolf here. Think about when you are purchasing products and you're interacting with consumer products, and when you sign up for something, when you are clicking that button, yes, I agree with terms. Um, Most of that data is sold kind of immediately to then remarket to you on other different kinds of products. So that's how the collection is done on that. And so what we have are things like there's like interest in dogs and cats. There's interest in different types of sports, both like playing sports but also watching sports. Interest in certain types of entertainment, whether it be music, the movies,
Charitable giving.
um, yeah, and then household income, which is an estimate. And there's if you own a home, that's largely sourced from just public records. Um, and whether you have an expensive car, or if you own a boat, a lot of that is public record as well. Um,
So the
and
data,
so, yeah,
that's one thing about this to understand is when you work with an identity graph, you're dealing with a data set that has the data itself has been aggregated from hundreds of different data sources,
right.
then normalized into household or individual records, right? So it
And
maybe
even, yeah, yes, yeah,
could have come from a magazine subscription, could have come from a credit reporting bureau,
right.
could have come from a purchase
Well,
somewhere.
yeah. So I mean, that's what I wanted to. So the data does not come from the credit reporting bureau in the way that you would think. In order to access credit data, you need to be selling credit. So people like me who's selling consumer goods and other targeting, I don't have access to credit data at all. What we do have access to is the kind of things that you would think are kind of like your high level profile of your credit that's got kind of inferred from other things you do.
Yeah.
So here's an example. Like if we know that you own a home, but is also public record, usually of like your level of mortgage, and then we have your estimated household income. Those are three things we can put together to think that whether or not someone runs a monthly debt, or if they're like in trouble with debt. So that's not any like free credit reporting act or anything like that. That's just kind of inferences. But they're very educated inferences, and so aggregating all those and like coming up with a customer profile, and then again like having a single customer profile is like pretty useless. It's really looking at your whole cohort, comparing, contrasting is where the kind of meat of all this lies.
Yeah, and I know I said this a couple times, but maybe Alex, when I say something, when I say like a group of your customers over-index for something, what I'm saying is that if you take the control of being, here's what the default population normal is, and your particular group that you've put together, whatever segment of purchasers you've decided, what we can say is that this group of people are two times more likely to read these publications,
Right.
have a dog, or whatever it may be. And there are like 1,500 different dimensions that we're looking at. So when you run this kind of report, you'll get like 1,500 rows of here's all the things that you can index someone on, and here's the top 10 that over-index for your particular group of people and how much they over-index.
Right.
You could then kind of take those pieces of information to figure out who your customer persona is. And then you can back away from that and say, okay, for this type of persona, what type of messaging or offers or whatever it is should we be giving them? We do have a question here from Rachel that we can, it's off topic, but that's fine. We can
Sure.
talk about whatever. Her question is about training bud tenders. I
No,
will, I know
I
you,
don't think it's off topic. I actually don't think it's off topic. Like it's just another data collection point. Uh,
so I'll say one thing and I'll let you get into it because I know
okay.
you have something to say about it. But the as it pertains to capturing data about your customers and ideally getting as much as you can, you want to train your bud tenders with like the burger shop thing of like, do you want fries with that? Right? You want to train them to ask a question. It's not whether or not they want fries. Hopefully it's tied to like your loyalty program or whatever it is. Hey, did you know if you sign up here every, 10th purchase, you get a free pre-roll or whatever it is. That's sort of the basic mechanism of getting people to capture more data. In this case, it's, sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our loyalty program, whatever it is. But I'll let you get into more of
I mean,
that.
I think it's like, I mean, I think it's as simple as like think. I mean, look, um, cannabis isn't CVS, and I think it's to the detriment of all of us to make those comparisons. I think when I started out in the industry, I used to have those hopes and dreams, and I was misguided to think that we could treat every industry the same. But all that being said, if you look at CVS, if you check out with your CVS card versus not, I mean, you save a lot of money, particularly like, if you have kids, if you're buying medicines and, around the holidays and things like that, you're kind of saving a lot of money, but like you don't get the discount unless you put your card in. And it used to be with CVS and other grocery stores that it was actually pretty easy just to fake it. Or like you said, oh, I forgot my card. And they would let you have the discount anyway. That's really no longer the case. And I think that when it comes to training bud tenders, like, there's obviously you want to have the sale, you want the person to buy your product. So, you can't be kind of shoving everything down everybody's throats. But I think if there's an expectation built on, I'm not going to get the discount unless I'm a member of the loyalty program and I actually sign in as that member at some point during my transaction. Um, I think that it gets easier to just have that be routine. So don't allow customers to get away that easy without kind of having some stake into what they are, into the kind of discount they're getting into their own experience. And I think like, for the majority of customers, I think that would be, like a no problem thing. It's something that people do every day. When you buy something on Amazon, when you sign into Spotify, when you sign into your laptop, you're kind of making those agreements with companies that are far more nefarious than cannabis companies, and are offering you a lot less than a discount to a product that they want to buy. So I don't have any opinion on actually what the training for bud tenders should be. I mean, I think there's many other folks in the industry who have a better handle on how to, um, kind of have an edict from on high about what people should be doing. But what I would say is that, like, I think if you build a culture of, we're doing this for the benefit of our consumers, to know what you want to have on the shelves, to know what discounts we should be giving on different holidays, to know how to reach out to you when we have one of the SKUs that you bought a couple of different times. Um,
I think you can do a pull through a little bit though in terms of discounting. I'll tangent here a little bit to your after your discussion about CVS, right? And we have Safeway where I live, which is a grocery store. Um, they had notoriously pretty bad data for a long time because of that.
right.
Because people would just use whatever card, or the teller would just use the card that they had laying around. And they have been trying to fix that because that data is so valuable. I've seen Safeway where I live has been doing something interesting where, you have your Safeway Club card, you type in your phone number, and some of your things end up being cheaper. What they've started doing is they've been putting they have a new app that's like a coupon app, right? And they've got a bunch of products in the store that are like really inexpensive. They're
Oh,
obviously
right,
losing
right.
money on
Yeah.
them, right? So
They
like,
have that at
oh,
CVS now
this
too.
thing of ice
Yeah.
cream that's normally $7 is only 99 cents if you use the coupon.
Right.
And you have to get the coupon app. You can't, it doesn't just work with your normal
And you have to sign in with the coupon.
you have to
Yeah.
sign in with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
coupon,
Yeah.
right? So that's how they're trying to figure out a way to clean up that data. But sort of a long story. But my point is that you could use your discounting on your loyalty program to pull through in the sense that when I've seen this happen, to go to a dispensary and you're like, oh, I'm going to get this or that, and they'll say, oh, well, you should this thing over here is on sale right now, right? So these products are similar. You should try this. But if you can tie that to getting people to fully subscribe, whatever that means for you, getting the right amount of information that you want out of the customer, then and you make sure that your bud tenders are aware of that, then they'll naturally push customers toward that process, and that will, hopefully fill out your data set better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I, I, I think so. I mean, and I think just the overarching message is just that um, it's a unique time in history for cannabis. I think there's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of frankly, if anybody in the industry knows, like just kind of like a lot of negativity. But this is one thing that's actually really positive and like relatively easy to try and implement. Like just give it a try.
Yeah.
Um, and because
Oh,
it's like having the online orders, which are kind of lights out, and you're going to get that information, and just kind of being able to um, collect that with the in-person orders as well. Because what's useful there is you can begin also to know the difference between your online customers and your in-person customers, or your delivery customers and in-person customers, or pickup customers. And it makes kind of everything like just like that much more efficient.
yeah.
Um,
I forgot something that you can do with first party data, which we do all the time. So let's go back to the concept of you've got your customer list, and these are your customers, and let's say you've picked your high value customers, and we can take that list and build an audience out of it, and then you can use that audience in three different ways, right? So the first one is you can put them into a retargeting audience. So these are people that you know, and we can serve them digital ads on whatever app or website that they're on, for retention marketing or giving them offers or whatever it is you want to do. The other thing you can do with that list is you can use it as an exclusion list, right? So you can say, okay, there's this group of people. These are my frequent shoppers, right? So I want to run a campaign that is a 30% off special, but I actually don't want to send it to these set of customers because they're going to come in anyway. So here you can use that same customer list for targeting and suppression. And then the third thing you can do is you can build a lookalike model off of those, right? Again, we talked about building, getting the demographics. What are these customers over or under index for? Well, that gives you a map for your market area where you can say, here are other people in my target market that are not my current customers, but look very similar to them. And that's a way of using kind of machine learning. You don't even really have to go in and look at it and be like, oh, these are all, high or low income or whatever it is. You can kind of let the AI do the work for you and say, okay, I just want a lookalike modeled audience. And then you can use that as a target audience as well.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
works pretty
Yeah. I
well.
mean, I think there's also, yeah, I mean, there's it doesn't have to be. I think some of this stuff sounds like super sophisticated or daunting. When we talk about something like a model, um, if you have something as simple as literally a pen and paper where you have people signing up and there's some kind of written record of the time and date the person came in, and if you can keep a record of those times, you're kind of creating attributes on that person.
Mhm.
And knowing like the time they came in and what they bought, you can begin to kind of even do your own, kind of like down and dirty analysis of like, what do you think is selling? What times of day is, should you be offering these discounts? And it doesn't have to, you don't need to be spending money on with people like me appending different consumer data sets, even though I think that's a great way to go. And I've staked my career on it, but it doesn't have to be out of the gate like a daunting task. And it's something that I'd be willing to help anybody with as a starter.
Yeah, and there is, like I was saying before, there is an easy button here for this. If you don't want
Yeah.
to dig through the data and look at all of it, it can be as simple as here's my email list. You upload it in the form, click build audience, and then you have that audience, and you can choose to serve ads to it or intentionally serve ads to it. Um, but the data you will, I've never seen anyone get back their demographic report and not be interested in the results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can also do like we've done a lot of like maps, little like scatter maps around your dispensary of like, do most of your customers live locally? Have people like someone on your loyalty list that hasn't come in? Um, are they actually not coming to your dispensary, or did they move, or did they die? Like something
Sure.
like that. Like it's like, and like because I think um there's many reasons why someone does or doesn't come into your store anymore. And it can be easy to find that out. They were there on vacation. Um, or they had you can actually find out if the presence of children in the household. They now have a family. So they're buying
Yeah,
edibles
so
now.
there's
Buying
one
one for a ball. Yeah.
presence of children and household. Like that doesn't necessarily intuitively sound like it's that interesting. However, it becomes really interesting when you think about the way that people behave when they have children,
Right.
especially when it comes to vacations. You're like, oh, are they not shopping here? Why are they not shopping here? Well, they're on the spring break, right? Or they are going to behave in specific ways at specific times.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Are there any other topics we need to cover? I think we've beaten some of this pretty
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we talked about, I think we covered all of our topics. So, if anyone has any more questions, ask them now, and we're happy to answer them. Um, I'll just, summarize here that if you run a dispenser or brand and you have really any amount of information about your customers, even if it as simple as an email list, you're sitting on a piece of value. Data is the only true evergreen asset that a business can own. When I say evergreen, I mean that it's an asset that you own and you can use it in multiple ways without using it up, right? So you continue to own the data and you can continue to get more value from it in different ways. If you've got any kind of customer list at all, there are interesting things that you can do with it.
Yeah, I think this is so. This is what I'll say last as well. Similar to what Jake just said, is that I remember like being a kid and like the best direct mail I can remember, at least that worked on my parents and on me, is that when your dentist sent you the card, either the hey, it's time for your cleaning or whatever, or um, when your dentist switched, the dentist sold their business, and it was just you went to the same office, but it was a whole different staff and new dentist, but that really didn't matter to you because the location was there, the experience was the same, the parking was all the same. And so when like dentists and doctors, kind of other kind of practices like that sell their business, most of the value they're selling is not like the instruments and things like that that they're using or the real estate per se. It's the customer list
Yep.
because they're gonna, you want to be going to a dentist that's near your house and that you've gone to before, and going to the dentist is like an anxiety-inducing thing. I would say the same for some customers and going into dispensaries, like being familiar with a dispensary and being familiar with, I'm going to park here and I'm going to go in and I recognize the door. There's medicinal this way, there's recreational this way, and like I know how to get there. The first time you go into one, it's daunting. And having that location and having the customers associated with it is like
Yeah.
is gold.
Yeah, your customer list is the core of your value, right? They're the shoppers, they're the ones that are driving revenue. Dispensaries get bought and sold all the time, and the way that people value it is on the customers that you have. And the more information you have about your customers, you will be more effective as a retailer, but also the value of your business will be higher. Because if you do go at some point to sell your dispensary or delivery service or brand or whatever it is, that's gonna great. The more you know about your customers and the history you have interacting with them and utilizing that data will dramatically increase the value of your business.
Yeah, and that's something that Satara does as well. We do data evaluations in the context of M&A. But we also, I mean, and I've done it for years with political campaigns, like when the donation lists, when a campaign ends, what happens to that donor list? That's why you get spammed with many, many text messages.
Yeah, I got a lot of text messages this last year.
Yeah, well,
So, all right. Um, any final words of wisdom or bad jokes? No, don't give me a bad joke. I shouldn't have even said.
now, yeah, I think
Okay.
kind of joked out these days.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Reach out to Matt or myself if you have any follow-up questions. Always happy to talk to people in our industry and provide guidance where needed. This has been another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. I am Jake Litke, CEO at MediaGel. We do digital
Matt
marketing.
Taverna for Satara.
Great. Thanks, everyone.